everyone, and welcome back to another episode with the Road to Glory podcast. I'm Juliet.
And I'm Cecilia. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about everything that happened this past weekend in Monaco in F2 and F3. And in our usual episodes, we normally start off by talking about F3 and then moving on to F2. But with all the shenanigans happening in F2 this weekend, we obviously have to talk about F2 first, like the big elephant in the room.
Literally, she was chaos. I mean, F3 had its own chaos as well. But I feel like, especially in social media and everything, F2 went a little bit wild. So we'll be starting off with everything that happened F2 and then moving on to F3. I'm so glad we did not have F1 Academy this weekend because there is so much to cover just in F2 and F3. If we had F1 Academy, that would be crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely why, like, they are kind enough to plan the calendar so not all three of them are at the same time, because that would be madness, honestly.
Exactly. Monaco would be insane, especially on that track. No.
Yeah, that would be literally insane. So yeah, obviously F2, there's plenty of stuff to talk about. Already from, like, qualifying is controversial already in itself. So let's start there.
Yes.
Okay.
So in Monaco, qualifying is split into two groups in F2 and F3. You have Group 1 and Group 2. It kind of works like you have each, because in F2 you have two drivers per team. You have one driver from each team in each group. I think it was drawn out the hat if the even or odd numbers went in which group.
Yeah, it is every year in, like, the driver's briefing, essentially, so it comes down to luck.
Exactly. And I mean, technically the second group going out should get an advantage, but it's not always like that because it can be red flagged or delayed for some reasons. There could be rain in the one group and not in the other, so it really is so luck dependent on what happens. So both groups are pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, that's what we have seen in the last couple of years anyway, that it can be people from Group A, the first group, that do take pole position, even though technically they have the worst of the track, because the track obviously develops and keeps getting faster, technically, but it doesn't always pan out that way. Also, just as of the luck perspective, it also is pretty lucky or unlucky which drivers you're up against in your group, because obviously you can be put together with some of the best drivers on the grid. A lot of people can get kind of confused about it, and also, like, I did watch Monaco qualifying with Danish commentary a couple of years back, and he got the rules completely confused and was like telling things wrong. So to put it, that's very bad, but we are here to, like, give you the right information here.
Exactly.
But how it works, to put it very simply, is the group that has the quickest time overall of, like, both the groups. That person takes pole, and then imagine the pole side of the grid, which is the inside. The people that qualified second, third, and so forth will start behind that guy, like on that part of the grid.
In the line.
Where, exactly, on the inside line. And then the slower group will start. Obviously, the quickest driver will then start second, and then every driver behind him will, like, be behind him on that side of the grid.
Yes. Very nicely explained.
Yeah, because that's the annoying thing also about watching it, is a driver could qualify third, and it doesn't look that bad. You will be further back than maybe and what it seems like at first glance.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think of it when I see them qualifying and I see the positions they are on the side. I like to think that's the row they'll be on. They'll be on the first row, they'll be on the second row, or they'll be on the third row, or so on.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's obviously, you don't know the exact position, but that's where they'll end up being.
Yeah, and obviously starting off with Group A, Victor Martins was part of that group. And honestly, Victor Martins he's a beast around the streets of Monaco. Like, every single year he's there, he's just putting in the best time in whatever group he's in.
Honestly, it's something about that circuit that just, like, gels with Victor. Like, Victor knows that circuit. And I mean, he does have experience. He's been there a couple times, so I'll give him that. But he just seems to have it on point every single time he's at the circuit.
Yeah, and even from like his rookie year in F2, he was the quickest driver in his group, I remember, but obviously missing out on pole because of the other group being quicker than him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just his thing. Like he's has honestly been so unfortunate because I am pretty sure that he has like been one of the quickest driver every year, but he never starts on pole because he never has the fastest world time, unfortunately for him.
Oh, so unfortunate. And that's where the
Yeah,
luck aspect comes into it. Luckily, he's
yeah.
still starting front of the grid, so it's not
Yeah,
awful,
maybe not
but he's
ideal
still.
this year. So, but we'll get on to that.
Yes, in a little bit. We'll start with
Mm,
some of the more tame stuff.
yeah. So yeah, obviously Group A. Honestly, that was a pretty clean group.
It
Nothing
was.
much happened. Wasn't any red
Yeah.
flags.
Nope.
Um, so that definitely helped them not having that stoppage of having a red flag
Exactly. Group B is where it got really, really chaotic. Um,
already from the start of Group B.
yeah, we had some interesting moves happen when it was unnecessary. And a red flag and a crash by Rafael Villagomez because Alex Dunn was in the way. If that's how I can put
In
it,
it was
he
a
shouldn't
weird
have been there.
incident.
Yeah, it just felt
No.
unnecessary. Like, why are you trying to overtake on one of the last corners? I mean, I do understand Alex Dunn was saying he was about to start a flying lap and wanted to get out there in front, but then Rafael Villagomez also had the right to be in front of him. You know, in qualifying, you're not meant to be
Exactly.
overtaking people.
No.
So Alex Dunn tried to overtake Rafael Villagomez, run on the corner, but it was never going to work out. That was never
No.
going to happen. We're at Monaco, so then Rafael Villagomez crashed and caused a red flag, so there was stoppage for that.
Yeah.
Um, and no, nothing. The stewards didn't give anything
Uh,
out.
the first controversy of the weekend.
Yep. Which I just personally, this is all coming from my perspective. I feel like something, it didn't feel right. And I did read the document saying, Alex thought he was going onto a push lap, and they thought it was no driver's fault, which is good. At least
Uh,
Raphael didn't get a penalty or anything. But if you're not gonna punish a driver for doing stupid things, they're just gonna do the stupid things again.
yeah. Foreshadowing of what happened on Sunday, essentially. Because yeah, from how I see it,
Yeah,
Alex Dunn was being very impatient on his warm-up lap, his out lap, um, already trying to pass Villa Gomez early on the lap, it seems. And obviously, I get it that he wants to put in a good lap to like
mm.
have a time essentially to work upon, but still, it was not like it was the final push-up they were on their way out on, and it could be critical for Paul. Like it was literally the
They're
first lap they were about to start. So no reason for being that impatient. And yeah, as you say, obviously things going wrong in this final corner, where from Alex's perspective, Villa Gomez just turned into him without expecting him being there. But at the same
yeah,
time, Alex, you were not supposed to be there in the first
no,
place.
very
So maybe
unexpected.
exactly. So from my perspective, it was Alex that kind of pushed Villa Gomez into the wall, which then obviously completely ruined Rafael's weekend from there because it's Monaco. Come on, if you don't even put it in a time in qualifying, you can might as well just leave, like go back home.
Honestly, you might as well go home. There's no point.
Yeah. Like, what is the point? That was very unfortunate.
Yeah,
Also, because I feel like the commentators, at least one of them, on F1 TV, was expecting that Alex might get a penalty because he did
yeah.
make it sound like he would regret doing this, essentially.
Exactly. And I want to preface all of this by saying we don't have anything against
No.
Alex Dunn. He's an incredible driver, but these moves, from our perspective, seem a little bit rash, and he is harming his own championship fight. So I feel like if he just
Mm,
reined it in a tiny bit, he's got so much potential, so much drive. If he just
mm,
kept it in a little bit and drove cleanly, it
yeah.
could have been completely different for him.
Yeah, and this is also like not the first time we're talking about this season. We also talked about it back in Jeddah, where he was very aggressive in his driving, and I believe it was the sprint race, and already then talking about how it could affect his championship moving forward. So obviously, I was on the side of thinking that he could possibly have gotten a
Mhm.
penalty for what he did,
Yeah.
which is don't fully understand the rules this year because obviously there's a new rule that if you
Yeah.
cause a red flag, your best time gets deleted.
Yeah.
Which, well, if you don't crash, but you are the reason why somebody else crashed, like that, why does that still not count for that rule technically? That's where it
I
gets
don't know
kind of
because you
gray
technically
area.
caused the red flag. If you weren't
Mm,
there, the red flag wouldn't have
exactly.
happened.
No. So I feel like he was fortunate to not get penalized for that because I know he took pole. It would have been so unfortunate if we had to like delete his time or something, and it wouldn't have been a good situation. But still, you're
No,
ruining another driver's whole weekend essentially. And it doesn't
completely.
matter that it's
So
just Villa Gomez. Like, what if it
yeah,
had been like in the final weekend and up against his like title rival or something? He can do the same and then not get a penalty. Like, this is just such a gray area to open up. I feel like.
exactly, and it feels like it's going to be taken advantage of.
Yeah, because I also feel like people that crashed during qualifying has in the past got penalized for it, but apparently not this.
I mean, that wasn't even the last that happened in Group B's qualifying, because we had Sebastian Montoya, who spun right at the end of their qualifying session, pretty much as people were doing their final push laps, which is really unfortunate because these drivers are coming through a sector with yellow flags, so they have to back off, and
Mm,
then obviously they can't set their qualifying laps. But luckily, Sebas was okay. So
yeah, and I was also lucky that it didn't cause a red flag because it was right at the end of the session.
yeah,
Because then he could have gotten his best time, obviously, for
exactly.
causing a red flag.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that was a small part of
a
luck
small
on
win
his
for
side.
him.
Oh, small win for him, honestly. That was great because I did get scared, like, oh my God, will we have a red flag now? And then he just like drops way back because he did qualify okay, to be fair.
Exactly.
And the only other thing I feel like I have to mention about qualifying is obviously, as we mentioned, Group B will usually be the fastest one, like the second
Yeah,
group, because the track is better. But it did seem for a while that it would be very, very tight because obviously with the red flag and Group B, they didn't have like as much time because the
yeah,
whole first part got like kind of a start-stop effect, like everybody going out and then not being able to settle up, going back in again, press the red flag, back out again.
exactly.
But obviously Alex Dunne did set the fastest time overall, and it was literally by 3 thousandths of a
It was
second. Like
so
it was
close.
nothing. It was so close.
And I mean, it's very interesting because technically the drivers in Group B had more fuel on board because they hadn't done as many push laps, or most of them,
No.
or like laps around the circuit, which they calculate the exact amount of fuel that they need to put in for the car. So still to be that group to be fastest
Mm.
was, I mean, it was tight, but they got there.
It was so tight. But yeah, it was very like a very good lap for him obviously being able to do that because there was a pretty big margin down to the second fastest driver in that group still. But obviously that means Victor Martins missed out by literally nothing. And that's a point we have to talk about Victor Martins. Him being second, it's something we have talked about before, but I'm literally like just to check if my facts are correct. I did check how many
Yeah.
times he was in
No.
second. Like listen here.
Yeah.
Melbourne, he qualified
Yeah.
second. Next race is Bahrain, qualified
Yeah.
second. Third race of the season being Jeddah. Can you guess it? He qualified second. And then we get to Imola. He didn't qualify second, but he qualified third. So close to second again. And so close to pole as well, which is just ridiculous. And then we get to Monaco and he's so close again to pole. But then because the split qualifying, he gets second. Like it's not funny time to be Victor Martins, honestly.
I think we should rename Victor Martins to Mr. Consistent because he really
Yeah,
is consistent.
he is.
He just
And
Oh,
we can't see it in the points so far this year, is what I would say, because it's so, like I don't even understand what has happened this year with Victor, because he qualifies so well every weekend, and still he's like only on 33 points. Obviously, he could have had way more if things hadn't happened this weekend, but still,
yeah.
we'll get to that. He's still down in 8th in the championship, and at this point, he should have been way higher. Also, like him being in his 3rd year, things are just not playing out for him as they should in the races so far.
It's so unfortunate because, as you say, he's been qualifying so well, but he's just
Yeah.
not been converting that to podiums and wins and that kind of stuff, like consistently.
No, sometimes, obviously, because of the car, he has had some very poor starts for whatever reason sometimes, and other people crashing into him. It's also another thing. Also, obviously, that also happened at the sprint, where he wouldn't have finished high anyway because of the reverse grid, but nevertheless, he did get crashed. Well, not crashed into, but kind of he crashed in the final corner because Oliver Goethe did pass him in the final corner, essentially, not leaving a lot of space for him.
No, I mean, passing in Monaco is always tricky. It's a bit easier for F2 and F3 generally because their cars are a bit smaller, but still, it is tight there, and sometimes a lot of accidents happen.
Yeah, because it's near impossible, honestly, to make a pass without ending in some kind of contact.
Yeah, completely. Going back to the start of the sprint, unfortunately, Luke Browning had an awful start, actually.
He really did.
I don't know what happened to him, but he was so much slower than everyone else. I mean, it wasn't too bad. At least he does end up at the end. He still landed at P3, thankfully.
Exactly. It was good.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing I will say is that I did notice in general, being a Williams Junior Academy driver fan this weekend was very. Oh, hello.
Do you want to join the podcast? Are you a big
This is our new
fan?
co-host.
Jamie. Chats with Jamie. Do you want to sit on my lap? Okay.
That's fine. We can move
You
on.
can join us.
Yeah, no? Okay. Maybe not.
No.
But yeah, obviously talking about the William Junior drivers, what are the odds? Obviously now we're only talking about F2, but I have to mention, the same day during the sprint in F3, we also had a Williams Junior starting, actually from pole, so also from the front row, also getting a horrible start, like not stalling, but again, very slow start. So both Luke and him, just horrible starts from the front row.
Again, maybe that livery, okay, well, I can't say cursed because David Landon looked it well, but cursed for their starts.
Yeah, apparently, because also, obviously, we will get to the feature race with Victor having an incredible start, but still very cursed.
Yeah, very, very cursed.
Very, very cursed. That it was not a good time to start the race as a Williams Junior this weekend for whatever reason.
Some other stuff that happened in the sprint, because honestly, chaos in there as well, but
it was chaos.
Arvid Lindblad, I think it was not first corner.
No.
One of the corners. Just before
towards the hairpin thing.
Yes,
like right
just before hairpin. Yes. Arvid Lindblad tried to overtake Jack Crawford and made contact with him. Got a 10-second time penalty, so it was Arvid's fault. But I mean, it's just Monaco is so difficult to overtake. So these things happen all the time.
Yeah, and all the drivers know that their best chance of moving forwards in the race is literally on lap 1. So we do get some optimistic moves from drivers like Arvid Lindblad, and like fair play for trying. It didn't work out for him, unfortunately. So this just wasn't his weekend.
Yeah, Ken Shields got spun around, I think, by Rafael Villagomez.
Yeah, I believe so.
Unfortunate for him, because then his race is just done.
Yeah, we will always get victims of the streets of Monaco. Like, it's
We
just
really
what happens,
will.
honestly. People will end up crashing, unfortunately. But yeah, also, obviously, as you mentioned before with Arvid Lindblad, that was the only, like, kind of interesting thing that was going on, was that I did not understand the strategy of him like opening up that 12-second gap up to Minnie, which did work out. But I was like, what are we doing here, Campus? What is the strategy?
I think Arvid was just as confused as us, though, because
Yeah,
he was like,
it was.
"Why?
Yeah,
I
like
want to do that."
I have a 10-second penalty. Why do I need to like make myself slower?
12 seconds back.
Yeah, but it did work out because I was questioning, okay, so you are driving very slowly, backing everyone up.
Yeah.
Why do we think that then when you go fast by the end of the race, people won't be able to follow you? But apparently they are
Yeah.
smarter than us because he was able to like really just put in some quality laps essentially and just completely, go away from the rest of the pack and like opening up a bigger gap so we didn't go all the way out of the points.
Yes, exactly. They knew something we didn't, clearly, and they are the
That's why we're
professionals.
not race strategists. Like, that is not our job,
Yeah.
thankfully.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sprint. Other than that, not a lot happened. I did find it funny that Miney and Minnie were first and second. Like that was all my mind could think about. Just yeah, I don't know why.
I love
It was
that.
just yeah, because it does low-key kind of sound like that children's counting thing to choose a person, like who's gonna win, like the
Eeny,
eeny,
meeny,
miny,
miny,
moe.
moe.
Yeah, exactly. We're just missing a moe, and it would have been great. Literally.
That's so funny. I never thought of that.
No, but I was like explaining to like I think it was my dad that came in to watch the race and something like, so it's Miney and Minnie, and they was like, oh, like it just so basically eeny miny moe for the victory.
That's so funny. So yeah, so we had Kush Miney, who landed up winning the race. Great for him. Minnie, P2, which is really good for his championship battle. And then Luke Browning in P3.
Yeah, not a shabby podium at all. That was pretty great,
No.
honestly.
Can I tell you what my favorite thing about Monaco is? Sorry, I just have to get off my...
Oh,
Is
come
when the drivers win and they jump into the ocean. It's my favorite thing. Because
That's
there was
the
a
best
clip
part.
that came out of the sprint win of F2 and they went to go swim. They were literally at like a little beach. There were people just randomly there, and it just fills me with so much joy. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to win a race and jump into the ocean.
Yeah, that's on the bucket list. That will never happen, but
Really
could be cool.
We can dream.
Yeah, and also like just I believe it was them that like obviously the F3 drivers did it too, but I do believe it was the F2 drivers here with Minnie and Miney and Browning, where they jumped in. There was just like a group of random elderly men in the ocean at the same time. There was just like, okay, that must have been a cool experience for them, I'm sure.
That must have. I did die laughing when Minnie was like, "Get out! These race suits are gonna drown us."
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're too heavy.
Luke is literally diving through the waves. He does not care.
No, and Minnie like scared they will all drown from the weight of the suits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very much their personalities in general, I feel like.
Completely.
Like, sums it up. Yeah, it really is. But yeah, honestly, the sprint was a decent race. I feel like not too much controversy to talk about, but obviously we can't have controversial things happening in every single session because we did get plenty of that in the feature race. So yeah, let's just get into it. Let's just get into it, honestly.
Yeah, if you didn't watch the feature race, you may be thinking, "Oh, I'm confused." Or if you just weren't on social media and didn't see anything from the race, you might be a bit confused. I actually saw a couple of people say it was their first F2 race, and I was like, that's an introduction and a half. Because
it is.
We start the race clean, off the line, clean. It was the first corner that everything went wrong.
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate because obviously it being Monaco, the run up to turn one is pretty short, and that's why you always like expect the pole sitter to like keep the lead into turn one. We hardly ever see second place, taking the lead into turn one. So that really shows that Victor, obviously, I am pretty sure this is his third time starting
Yeah.
from the front row. So he got some practice, especially from that second place. So he knows what he's doing. Finally, he has like very good start because,
Yeah.
as mentioned, he has been struggling with that this year. Gets a
Yes.
flying start. Actually gets ahead of Alex. And
Yes.
then things go completely wrong. Because let's make this clear. Again, we do not dislike Alex. We don't hold
No.
anything against him really, but this turn one wasn't him. Like, he shouldn't have
Yeah.
been where he was into turn one. It was like a desperate, I will not lose the lead into turn one. Like, that was what was going on.
Yeah, completely. And I mean, turn one has an area where you can go off of, you know? If you're not going to make the corner, you don't have to do it.
No.
I mean, obviously, some drivers use it unnecessarily and then they get penalties. But if you can't make the corner, you have to do something. Instead of just committing and hoping kind of vibes.
Yeah, because either he could have backed off slightly or he could have used a little runoff to like rejoin the track. He didn't choose to do any of that. So instead, obviously, it was Victor's corner, so he just turns in like he normally would, and then there's Alex. And all chaos ensues from that.
Yes.
Like what feels like half the grid just becoming a big car park into turn one.
Honestly, because I mean, the streets of Monaco, I mention again, are very small. Because there is one car in the wall, another car into that car, it got blocked up. I mean, props for the drivers who actually made it through. There were a couple of them. Yeah. But then, when you don't have anywhere to go, you kind of just go into the car in front of you. Yeah. I don't know if it was Max Esterson or Sammy Megatune. One of the Tridents got air.
Yeah, I think it actually was Megatune just like going for a little fly.
Honestly, he got so much air because we had quite like a camera angle that was like down the road and you just see him start to fly. But there were cars everywhere. It was chaos. Yeah. I didn't know who was in, who was out, who was damaged, or who just had to stop. And unfortunately,
we had no idea.
A lot of drivers ended up being out of the race because they had to get outside assistance to be moved away and restart their car, and then they can't continue with the race because they will be disqualified. So
exactly,
a lot of the time, those drivers didn't have anything wrong with their car. It's just so unfortunate that they can't continue. But I think there were 11 cars involved in that pileup.
Yeah. It was a lot, and honestly, it could have been such a scary incident. Luckily, obviously, they're not going that fast at that point, so it was pretty like a slow-moving plane crash happening, honestly, with everything. And I just can't imagine being Alex Dunne after that, because he's obviously the driver that most other people will blame. So I feel like there was a lot of hard feelings between certain drivers, and some of them were more vocal about it than others as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, in the heat of the moment, if there's a camera near you, they're going to catch you saying some things that you probably didn't want out on the internet.
No.
But especially because the race was immediately red flagged from them, and red flagged for like 50 minutes or something. It was a long red flag.
It was a while.
There were so many cars pretty much everywhere, and they had to clear the track, repair barriers and stuff like that. So it was a long red flag. So we saw a lot of the drivers go back to the pit lane, which was like 10 meters that way because they hadn't got very far.
No, exactly. That's the bright side.
Yeah. So we did see a lot of them hanging around and saw some colourful language.
Yeah, honestly, the only good thing that came out of that horrible incident was all the comedic gold that we were just being fed during that red flag period. Honestly, if you haven't seen it all, just go look it up on somewhere, please, because it's too funny.
Especially, it's so good.
Yeah, especially Victor Martins sharing a viewpoint that I have had honestly this year previously with Alexander as well, that he
Yeah.
thinks that he's Max Verstappen. Which
Yeah.
I understand that viewpoint, honestly, especially when you literally feel like you just were taking away the lead
Yeah.
of the Monaco Grand Prix by his driver. So fair enough.
Exactly. Yeah, I was laughing because especially
Hmm.
Victor's French accent when he's like,
Yeah.
he thinks he's Max Verstappen talking about Alex Dunne.
Yeah, it was a little too funny, honestly, but I do get the big frustrations. Also because with Victor Martins, this is his third year in F2, and I strongly doubt that he will be back for another year. So this was like his last chance to win on the streets of
Yeah.
Monaco, which like every driver wants to do. And like you can, going into turn one, he is seeing that he's basically already passed Alex. Like he, in his mind, he is like almost already won the race, I'm sure, because was what I
Exactly.
would have felt like if I was in that
Yeah.
position. Then like getting it taken away from you in just like a second.
Yeah, and he was Victor Martins was talking to Pepe Marti, who unfortunately in that instance he just hadn't Pepe had nowhere to go because he started a little bit
No.
further back. There were just cars in the road, so he had to stop and then he
Mm.
couldn't continue with the race. But
No.
this is Pepe's second year as well, and I know he said in an interview it's pretty much his final year. So every single race really counts for him to be able to prove something. I mean, he didn't qualify very well. I think he was like 15th or something. He was right in the back, midfield.
Yeah. Mm.
But it's just unfortunate because he was right near the front of the championship, and this has made him fall back quite a lot because he was completely out the race.
Yeah, and this is just like an completely off weekend for a lot of the drivers now, like scoring
Yeah.
0 points because obviously the people qualifying very well started pretty low back in the sprint, so didn't really get many points, if any at all. And then starting at the front of the grid meant you are gonna crash out into turn one because of the Victor Alex incident. Because it is so annoying with F2 cars. Obviously, it wasn't even all of them that crashed out, but as you mentioned,
Yeah,
some of them just had to stop and then they lose the engine and then it's over for them essentially.
exactly. There
Yeah,
was one driver though who was maybe not necessarily lucky at first when you first look at it,
Mm.
but then
Yeah,
ended up
I
being
was gonna
lucky.
get on to that.
Yeah, so Sebastian Montoya, as he's done before in the past, aka last week,
Literally the week before.
yeah, he stalls on formation lap. Oh, awful,
Yeah.
right? Has to
We
stop
think
from
not
pit
again,
lane.
not again already.
Oh, race ruined, you think?
Yeah,
No, actually not.
no.
Because he started from pit lane. He saw everything happen in front of
Yeah.
him, found a clear way to drive through, and he was fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's like the universe that wanted to show like what I said last week, because obviously he stalled on formation lap again last week when he was supposed to start second, by the way. And I said there's a life after stalled car in F2. And like the universe very much chose to like show that there really is. Because like
Yeah.
imagine Sebastian Montoya was supposed to start in 5th position, which was obviously great being Monaco. You think, okay,
Yeah.
starting from pit lane, you might as well just go home. But no,
Yeah.
universe had other plans for Sebastian Montoya at this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty much most people in front of him crashed. So when we finally got a restart order, he ends up starting P2.
Yeah, literally, like if we're talking about the logo meter, which we forgot last weekend, but if we have to talk about a logo meter, like this is
Yeah.
it. This is the way. Monaco is the most luck dependent because obviously way too many drivers are fighting for that top spot of being unlucky because there were a lot of them. But if we're talking about luckiest, obviously we will get to the most lucky driver by the end of this race. But still, Sebastian Montoya was up there, starting in second, just because essentially he stalled the car. Like, how does that even happen?
The universe was like,
it's insane.
I'm actually going to save you from all of this horribleness. I'm going to make you stall. I'm going to take you out of this chaos for your own good. And that's called trust the process, because I was very angry. I was very upset for him when he stalled. But it landed up really working out in his favor. So he was very, very lucky.
And also, like, before we move on from this whole turn one incident, I feel like we do have to mention more of the comedic gold, being some of the drivers refusing to go out of their cars, which was mainly, obviously, Ritomo Miyata was one of them, but
Yeah.
the more funny version of that was Gabriel and Mini. Obviously, love his race engineer that Pedro. He was Fred Vesti's race engineer as well for Prema. He told him to like stay in the car because we're not sure
Yeah.
if we'll be allowed to like go out onto the track and like restart the car.
Yeah.
So don't go out of it because the rules are obviously if he leaves the car then he's done, he's out of the race.
Yes.
So he just stays in the car for I don't know how long, and we keep getting
The
like
marshals,
radio message from him. Yeah, Marshall's telling him to literally like get out.
they're like, get out the car, get out the car. He's
Yeah.
radioing to his pit wall. The pit wall's like, we are gonna physically walk over to the FIA and see what we can do because they're not answering us. They were committed.
Yeah. Like, oh, wondering what they are busy doing right now. Honestly, I love that. The commitment from Pedro was very much appreciated. And like
Yeah.
Mini radioing back later being like, I'm playing hide and seek now because he had been like pushed into like one of the small, like not runoffs, but where you can like park the car essentially if you have an issue.
Yeah.
So he was just there, just
He was
kind
just
of
sat in
hiding
the
from the
car.
marshals. Yeah. Yeah, until apparently they couldn't get him going. They weren't
Yeah,
allowed.
unfortunate for him and for Ritomo Miyata. They both
Yeah.
were not able to continue with their race.
No.
Which they were out. But you know what I wanted to mention here? When I saw that whole pileup of cars, it was like the fallen tributes in the Hunger Games. Like, completely. Like,
I literally like texted about that.
Like a member of, I don't know which district it is. District 11, maybe? Where they go, like, like, to the fallen tributes.
That was too funny. That we should have had a moment like that. Yeah, and that's also why I did, because we were talking about like who is even in this race, because it was very hard to tell honestly who was still in the race and who were out. I did find a tweet that F2 made, so I feel like we need a moment for the fallen tributes of Turn 1 in Monaco. Fallen tributes were Alex Dunne, obviously. Victor Martins. Yeah, exactly. Like imagine like the whole Hunger Games-esque
his name faces in the sky.
Yeah, we should have done that. Richard for sure, which was again, he's literally in his 5th year or something. Like this will be his last Monaco race, and he was supposed to win it last year as well if he hadn't had like car failure. So like imagine him just thinking, what is this luck? So Richard for sure. Gabrielle and Mini, also one of the fallen tributes. Ritomo Miyata as well. Unfortunately, again, one of the drivers that didn't have any car damage, but just couldn't get the car back started, basically.
Yeah.
And the final two were Pepe Marti and Max Esterson. So, like, that's a lot of drivers to just be taken out into turn 1.
Honestly, it's just, it's crazy. At first, I was really scared when I saw the crash because it looked really bad. Luckily, they were all okay.
Yeah.
But turn 1 incidents can be, especially at Monaco, can be a pile-up. Because we also saw in the Porsche Cup that happened. Yeah. They also had a huge pile-up. I mean, it was a little bit further up the road, but it was pretty much a turn 1 incident. And I was like, oh, what is going to happen in F1 at least?
Yeah. Thankfully, we had a more calm version.
We did.
Yeah, the streets of Monaco had too much going on for it in first laps, honestly. But yeah, with F2, we always say that F2 is basically just a lot of chaos, especially in Monaco. Yeah. Just if you're a new viewer, it's not this much chaos every time. Okay? Don't you worry. We don't have a whole, how many cars? Was it like 7 cars?
7?
Yeah.
Something like
that. Yeah, it was 7 cars. We don't have a 7-car crash out into turn 1 every weekend. Don't you worry.
Yeah, we're okay. Like
Yeah.
yes, there are usually crashes. You will really rarely find a race where there isn't someone who has
No.
crashed or DNF'd, but it's not usually this bad, I promise you.
No, but before we move on to what happened in the rest of the race, I still feel like we have to finish off the whole Alex Dunne thing because obviously, as we already mentioned, he was the driver to blame essentially.
Yeah.
And before talking about any possible penalties, I will still say that I do not completely understand that he was willing to risk as much as he did. Obviously, in the moment you can't think, but I still
Yeah.
feel like it's something before every race week he maybe has to start thinking a bit more about because we have mentioned already, again, back in Jeddah, things he's doing could hurt his championship. And okay,
Yeah.
he lost the championship lead this weekend. We'll come on to who took that, which I'm sure you'll be happy about. uh, but obviously, he's not that far behind. He's only a couple of points behind. But I still don't feel like that's a good, not excuse, but like a good point to say, but oh yeah, okay, so it happened. But whatever, because he's not that far behind. Still, like F2 is super close. It is potentially like, let's say he somehow regained the lead. It's 25 points loss. Or if he finished, just settled for second, it would have been 18 points. Like, you can lose the championship with like 1 point, and you will still go back and thinking about these races where you could have gained way more points.
Exactly. I guess it must have just been heat at the moment, but I think he does need to change his mindset slightly and think, you know what? I will let Victor have this corner and get him when we get to the next corner or when we're going round the hairpin or something like that. Because there are other opportunities at Monaco, especially in F2, and who knows what happens to the rest of the race. It just felt a bit rash, the decision that he made.
Yeah. Because obviously it's easy saying afterwards because it must have been just a very, to me it still feels like kind of a panic decision of very much not wanting to lose the race lead into turn one because
Yeah.
maybe it's also like a form of embarrassment for some drivers because obviously you know the whole thing about the driver from pole never loses the race lead unless like they have a very poor start, obviously, then it makes sense.
Yeah.
But he didn't have that bad start, so just very much
No.
didn't want to give it up at that point, which was so unfortunate and something he will maybe look back on when we come later into the championship and things maybe still as close as they are right now. He could still win the championship. Who knows? But yeah. Definitely some things to reflect on. Also because I don't want to dislike him. Like I actually really
No.
want to like him because he's a
Me too.
McLaren
Like,
junior. He seems nice.
exactly. I'm the biggest McLaren fan, you know. I'm really hoping he does well. But it's instances like this where I'm like, okay, it's unnecessary. That's it. It's just it shouldn't happen.
No, and this is so unfortunate because I'm also the a kind of person that don't like Max Verstappen because I don't like his style of driving. And obviously,
Yes.
not saying that he's Max Verstappen, but still, it's kind of the same mentality he has that like
Yeah.
try and pass me and we'll crash, or like
Yes, exactly.
making rash moves essentially. So yeah, I can't support that sort of driving. So hopefully that will improve. Maybe.
Yeah, hopefully he learns from this. We'll have to see.
Yeah, because obviously nothing happened with the qualifying incident. He didn't get penalized for that. Look what happens then. Then goes on to crash with another driver instead of race.
Exactly. At least
but
he did get penalized for this.
he has been now.
So, I mean, he did get a 10 grid drop for Spain, but still confuses me that he only has it for the next race he does, which is the sprint. So it doesn't apply to his next feature race, which this entire year we've had your penalty is for your next two races. So it does confuse me why it's only for the sprint.
Yeah, but the controversy continues. Yeah.
Yes.
They honestly don't really make the rules transparent enough, I feel like, because maybe there's some explanation that we don't understand. But from what as just maybe as a casual viewer or just as us that haven't like researched why it's only for the sprint, it doesn't make sense. Because obviously we have discussed and talked about whether it's a good idea or bad idea this year as you say, all
Mm,
penalties apply for both races because in the past it was just like the next race the driver
yeah,
participates in, which is then usually the sprint race. The issue with that is that isn't that big of a deal, honestly. Like,
no.
it's not that harsh a penalty because it's only small points. Where if he had been hit with a 10 pace grid drop in the feature race, that would have been hit him harder points wise, most likely, obviously, depending on where he qualifies anyway. But I'm sure he won't be last. So it's
No.
kind of like a small-ish penalty where it's like, why?
Yeah.
Because, as you say, everything else has been for both races. Just like simple things, like with now it's with F1 Academy, obviously it's not the same series, but they are based on like similar rules. Crashing
Mm,
into somebody in practice gives you a grid drop for both races.
yeah.
Um, so why is this like a odd situation where it's only for one? It doesn't make sense. Also, like, obviously, if we just take rules from F2, obviously with all the drivers where the teams did something illegal to their car
Mm,
during testing, it was for both races that they
yeah.
needed a grid drop. But for this instance, apparently they've deemed that to be too hard for whatever reason.
I'm confused how they're gonna do it. So, like, let's say Alex qualifies P1, then he lands up. Oh, he qualifies 10th. Then he lands up being on pole for the sprint. Will then he start 10th for the sprint, or what are they putting it on?
Yeah, I believe it is like where you're supposed to start that you get
Okay.
10 drawn back
Even
from.
with the reverse grid.
Yeah, I believe so. But yeah, still, it's a messy situation, I feel
It
like.
is.
And they're making it more complicated than it has to. At least he does get penalized for it, because if he had just made this absolute carnage into turn one and nothing happened, that
Nothing.
would have been even weirder.
Yeah.
So yeah, he'll take his punishment in Barcelona in the sprint race.
Yes. I think we have kind of covered that a little bit, and we can finally
Yeah,
move on to what actually happened in the race. So when
yeah.
the red flag finally ended,
Mm.
we went to a timed race rather than a number of laps. And then we landed up having 31 minutes on the clock when they went out. But it was a rolling start, so we didn't
Mm.
have to worry about any stalling on the
They
grid.
didn't want to risk anything at that point. They were like, this race is
No.
gonna be cancelled if we do a standing start. Like, it's not gonna happen.
I mean, there was still chaos after this, to be
Yeah.
honest, because we had Joshua Dirksen, who landed up
Mm.
being out of the race because he crashed into the wall. He just didn't anticipate Kushmani to brake as soon as he did on the final corner and land up crashing to the wall. So, I mean, there was still chaos after that.
Yeah, also like with Joshua Dirksen, he didn't have a good weekend because he also crashed in the sprint, which was something I
Yeah.
forgot until like I looked back at what happened. He also because of contact with another driver, I believe. So he didn't have the best time. The rocket ship
No.
wanted to retire from Monaco because it can't
Yeah,
get
it was
used in Monaco
really
anyway.
not his weekend.
No, it really wasn't. But as you mentioned with the sprint, obviously there were fewer drivers left, and obviously with the time being reduced, they would also
Yeah.
get reduced points. But obviously, we had Fonoroli starting from essentially P1. Obviously, it was a rolling
Yeah.
start, I should say. But he was on to finally get his first win. Because for those who don't know, we have mentioned this before as well, he is the reigning F3 champion, but he didn't win a single race, not a sprint, not a feature race, in that season
No.
F3. He hasn't won any races in F2 yet this year, even though he has come close. This is like his golden opportunity. Like, this is
Yeah.
Monaco. You are P1, you're gonna end P1. But
Exactly.
that wasn't meant to be.
No, that was not the case because we had
No.
Dino, who
Mm.
crashed. Very weirdly, it was a virtual safety car at first.
Mm.
I mean, first
More
it wasn't.
controversy.
Honestly,
I can't
I don't
with
know
this.
what was up with the stewards or the FIA specifically at this race,
No.
but with the
They
calling
were just
of
scared
safety
to like
cars.
say safety car. They were scared
Yeah.
to interfere. And that just made it worse, which we'll come to.
Exactly. And the first three drivers passed the pit lane. And then they call
A
safety
safety
car.
car. Honestly, I was so mad. Like, after yesterday, I was mad at drivers. I was mad at the FIA. I was mad at race control. Like, there is not a group of people I wasn't mad at. Because what do you mean? We see Dino crash into the barrier. Obviously it's gonna be a safety car. Like, it's
Yeah,
Monaco. We're gonna need to
yeah,
remove his car. It's gonna be a safety car. No, no, no.
yeah.
It's a virtual safety car because, as we know, a specific F2 rule, you cannot pit on the virtual safety car, which I still feel like that's something we have to reconsider because
I agree.
the rule you can't pit on the virtual safety car was introduced exactly because in Monaco, previously a driver won the race because he was able to pit on the virtual safety car. Uh, okay, fair enough, but
Yeah.
then those top three drivers, as you say, passing the pit lane when it was virtual safety car not being able to go in because then the pit stop wouldn't count. Then we turn it into a safety car. The same incident we just saw that we all saw should have been a safety car. Then we're like, oh no,
Yeah.
actually we do have to interfere more and it has to be a safety car. And then the fourth driver, Jack Crawford, can, like, just in the last moment go into the pit lane, which then gives him the win. So what is the point in not being able to pit on the virtual safety car when you're still giving a driver that wasn't supposed to win the win,
Oh,
essentially, by him being able, like, you could just, had you called it a safety car before, the top three could easily pit it. Like, I'm not exactly sure where they were on track, but I do know they had, like, just passed the pit entry as it turned safety car.
and the drivers over the radio were very confused why it was not
Mm.
a safety car pretty much
Yeah,
immediately. Because
we
they were
could all
like,
see it
he's
should
in
have
the
been.
track. Like, we're going past him. And he's very
Yeah,
much in the way. It needs to be a safety car here. But
yeah,
no, it was not. And then the race lands up getting red flagged because the barriers
yeah.
are too damaged and they will not be able to finish it. I mean, I think they had
No,
6 minutes left on the clock. So
yeah.
we had a very surprising winner in Jack Crawford.
How is this happening for the second year in a row? Like, I don't understand how we're getting like
Honestly.
a random winner this time. Because last year, I can say that obviously Zach O'Sullivan won the race. At
Yeah.
least he did have the part to play of strategy, of staying out long, waiting for that. Well, actually, it was a virtual safety car, but he did pit right before it turned into it, so like gaining
Yeah.
positions from that. Jack was just there. He was just
Yeah.
positioned right at the track when the safety car came out. Like, luckiest person on earth yesterday, honestly.
Completely great timing.
Yeah.
And then luckily, because Sebastian Montoya was not happy with
No, he was
the
furious.
safety car being called after he left. Luckily, he
Yeah.
did still land up on the podium in P3. He was P4 on track, but Arvid Lindblad got a penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Because obviously there was such chaos in the pit lane because they had 31 minutes left on the clock. And then they still had to pit because they have their mandatory pit stop in F2. So there was a lot of chaos with that. So he was speeding in the pit lane, and he got a time penalty, which dropped him off the podium.
Yeah, because honestly, obviously it did end up being kind of a weird race because time-wise, it was a sprint race, but with an added pit
with a
stop
pit stop.
because yeah, was the weirdest thing ever. And I literally texted you like before the pit stop round, being like, I'm so scared to see who will pit first out of the like front runners because somebody's
Yeah,
gonna get screwed over, and the whole top three just got screwed over
they all got screwed.
so badly. Absolutely, oh, just with race control, like still like the red flag, it's not even because there was like a separate incident. It was just like obviously they wanted to call it a virtual safety car because they didn't
Yeah,
want to like change the complexion of the race. Then they realized, oh wow,
they have to.
this really should be a safety car, which it should be.
Yeah.
Completely agree with that. Why not call it
Yeah.
earlier? And then obviously getting Dino's car away, then seeing the barriers being very damaged and being like, oh, this is not safe to drive with a barrier like that. It has to be a red flag. Like, what even was that call? Like, obviously it should have been a red flag. I agree. But still, like, the whole process of it was just so unfair. You took away Leonardo Fonoroli's first win. Like, can
No,
that man? No, is he just cursed? Like, he's not allowed to win. Apparently, like this was supposed to
oh,
be his moment, and it ends up second.
oh, it was very unfortunate. But it
Yeah,
was a great weekend for Dams with a double
it
win.
was. Yeah,
I wish Dams in F3 had this fire. I
yeah.
don't know, whatever's going for Dams in F2,
No,
because they seem to be doing really well, especially at Monaco this weekend.
yeah. Dams in F3 has to like take notes of what they're doing in F2 because I don't even know what they're doing in F3. Obviously, they're a new team, new car.
Yeah.
Fair
So
enough.
we
Maybe they need time
yeah.
to learn. But yeah, still, it's not great. So honest, I am happy for Jack Crawford for winning the race. But can we soon just get like a more deserving win at Monaco? Maybe is that a thing
Yeah.
still?
I
Because
don't
it's
honestly I don't know.
no, because we can have crazy races in Monaco and it's still ending up fairly. Obviously, it's just crazy to think about the last time in the feature race in F2 where the person starting from pole actually won the race. Like we're talking about the race where you have the biggest guarantee of winning the race if you start pole. The last
Yeah.
time that happened was literally like 2 years ago with Frederick Vesti winning, and like that was a crazy race too. Like we had safety cars and a red flag in that race as well, and luckily he didn't get
He did
screwed
win.
over.
Yeah.
But yeah, because the race control actually saw a car being crashed and thought, oh wow, that should be a safety car. And not calling in the virtual safety car first, guys. Like, take notes from that year, okay? And then do that next year. Thank you.
Yeah. And we have
Yep,
a different championship leader now in
we do.
F2. We have
Very
Luke
exciting.
Browning.
Woo! And your predictions are looking great
Yeah.
now because you did
It
predict Luke
is.
Browning for
He just
this
has
year.
to stay there. I mean,
Yeah, that's the main issue.
he's had 5 podiums in 5 races though. So like
Yeah, he's on a roll right
he
now.
he is, and he's been up there. Really hoping he does well at Silverstone when we're there, please.
Yeah,
Can
that
we
could
continue
nice.
to lead the championship? Can you win the championship? Just so I can be right. Imagine one of us is right with who we
Yeah,
predicted. Big
that
brain.
would be wild. My predictions are not looking great at the moment. But then again, predicting a Prema driver, I predicted Mini Flow no. Like, Prema is just a whole another thing this year again. Like, having similar struggles to last year with having flashes of pace, but for
Yeah.
some reason not being able to be consistently up there like we were used to seeing from years past before we got this new F2 car for whatever
Yeah.
reason. But yeah, obviously with the future race being shorter, we did get fewer points. So to be fair, there could have been a bigger margin that Luke were leading championship now, but
Yeah.
is still leading. That's the main point.
I think we got points down to 9th,
Yeah,
but
we
it
did.
was less points.
Yeah,
Shame for Ollie Guther, who was in P10, because,
yeah.
usually you'd score points, but unfortunately did not.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. Honestly, ending up in P10, then like, oh no, no points for you
No
today.
points. No points.
Also, the most F2 thing that happened, honestly, was that there were not many drivers finishing outside of the points anyway, but like still, it being the usual suspects ending out of the points were kind of impressive in itself, I feel like.
I agree. I definitely agree.
Well,
That
yeah,
was
well done.
a lot. F2 was a lot to talk about.
F2 was a lot. So honestly, we'll probably just go quickly through F3 because nobody wants to listen to us yap this long. Because it
No.
was a more calm weekend, but I feel
Yeah.
like main point to take away from F3 is that apparently Trident is cursed in Monaco. That's a new thing.
Yeah, completely.
Mm,
We had Nikola Solov who took pole. So, and he was fastest in his qualifying group. He's
yeah,
bringing
well
his
done to him.
experience.
Mm,
Yeah, he's bringing his experience to the team, and in P2 behind him in his group was Mary Boyer, who also, they're the most experienced in F3 at the moment, so you'd kind of expect them to be up on top in their qualifying group. What happened in Group B?
It was kind of an odd
Oh,
group B, because they were first of all slower, but it was also because we had a crash in Group B, like we had in F2. Um,
yeah.
because Brando but I can't say his
By the
last name.
way, that's what the
Badua?
commentators say. Something
Yeah,
like that.
Brando Badua. Something like that.
Yeah.
The Prema driver that has scored 0 points so far this year. He
Yeah.
crashed, unfortunately. So obviously we had that start-stop kind of effect again with Group B not being able to run as consistently as Group A. But it was very surprising seeing obviously Roman Balinski being the quickest driver of that group,
Yeah.
a rookie driver in that group.
Yeah, it was a Rodin 1-2 in that, which was
Mm,
crazy because Callum
yeah.
Voisin was also really up there. And Rafa was beaten for pole, like for the first time.
Yeah,
Which is
literally, like that
crazy
was
to
the
say.
big moment. Like the first time this year that Rafa Camara didn't take pole. Like, just let that sink in.
Yeah. Also we had a weird moment with Nicola Lacorta because he was
Hmm.
disqualified from qualifying because he got outside assistance, which we know you're not allowed to. And he got a black flag for it and was like, you cannot continue
No.
with your lap. And they sent him out again, which I don't
Yeah.
know who was in charge of that. Whose fault was
No.
that? But it can't be his fault because his
No.
team's telling him, okay, go out, or
Yeah.
no, come back in, which was strange.
It is confusing because I don't know if the team didn't notice that he had been given a black flag, but he was like under
Yeah,
investigation for being given it. So maybe they should have known. They shouldn't have let him out. The main point
no,
is it didn't change anything, because if he hadn't gone out, obviously he would still not be able to set a time, because the black flag means you're out of the session, disqualified, whatever. But it did send him out. So again, whatever time he put in got deleted, he got disqualified.
yeah,
But then he gets penalty points, which was so unnecessary if the team could have
yeah,
just kept him in. Yeah.
exactly.
It was a weird qualifying, but more as expected, obviously, with as you say, with Saul taking pole. This will probably also be his like final moment in F3 in Monaco specifically, to
Yeah,
like win the race. Also he did win the sprint race last year, so obviously now getting back on top in the feature race this time.
yes. His sprint didn't go very well though. He had an
No,
engine problem and was out of the
yeah,
race,
yeah,
um,
but
which was
if you need
unfortunate
an
for
issue,
him.
you want it in the sprint race, not when you start on
Exactly.
pole. So.
Exactly. So it was like he
Yeah.
got that out the way and then he was ready to have a good feature race.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of things happen in the sprint, and I don't feel like we can talk about all of it at all.
No.
Because it was just chaos. Again, obviously, I mentioned it was a bad time to be a Williams junior driver fan,
Yeah.
because we had Giusti, however you say his name, starting from pole, having a very poor start, dropping. Well, he did drop all the way off the podium, I believe,
Yeah.
or like top three. So that was not great, but still, that meant we had Martino
Yes.
Stenshorn taking over the lead, having a good start from second place.
Yes, very nice for a McLaren Junior to be doing well.
Yep.
So that was good to see. I mean, we had Noel Leon crashed. He
Mm,
made contact with the wall. So he was I
yeah.
wasn't really Prema's day, I will say.
No, I don't remember what driver it was. Like, it wasn't him, but another driver that crashed, like, made a comment on Instagram being like, I hate when the barriers hit you or something. Like,
That's
not you
so
hitting the barriers, but yeah, exactly. Like, I feel like it might have been James Headley, but I'm not sure. Like, one of the new free drivers. But like, I
yeah.
love that comment, honestly.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because
I
that's
mean,
also
James
another
Headley.
thing we should mention with James Hadley.
Yeah.
Obviously, he actually like hurt his hand, so he wasn't
Yeah.
able to participate for the rest of the weekend. So I'm so scared we're gonna have another new AIX driver in this weekend if he can't drive. Like,
I
just
really
keep the
hope.
count up.
Yeah, let's add somebody else in.
Yeah, like probably bring in somebody they already have had in the car, maybe if they decide to do anything that makes sense. But
Yeah,
let's see, because it is your ex. So
exactly.
yeah, but obviously maybe moving through the sprint, obviously we had
Yeah,
the finishing positions of Martinez, then Sean winning the race, as I mentioned,
yeah,
and then Tuka Taponen, which is again like a driver we have mentioned already, like always up there, but not quite winning.
yeah.
He was P2, so very great job from him being a rookie at the track as well. And then his teammate Lawrence Van Huben in third position.
Yeah, it was a nice double podium for ART.
It really was. It was a great showing for them. And also, I won't even mention Noah Stromsted having a complete off weekend. Like, it didn't happen. Like, Noah actually wasn't in
Yeah,
there.
I didn't see anything.
No, nothing happened. I do respect him for trying to make a move in the sprint, because when you're way outside the points, you need to try and make something
You
happen.
need to try something. Yeah.
It didn't work out. Another rookie, however, that did qualify badly in obviously qualifying, but it performed well in the races was Louis Sharp. Like, how did he get past his teammates? I was like, how did you get there, Louis?
I
Like, well done to you.
Because I wasn't like focusing on him at one point, that I saw him like
No.
right there. I was like,
Mm.
when did that happen?
Yeah, like all the rodent drivers just wanted to be together because they know I have said they have like chaotic boy band vibes, so they wanted to be
Oh,
together on the track.
yeah,
Obviously, they did for
exactly.
me. Yeah, because Louis did manage to jump at least Roman Belinsky around the start, and then also right by the end when Callum Boyson was battling Mary Boyer, he managed to pass him as well. And like passing people in Monaco is like a great achievement. So well done,
Definitely.
Louis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very nice to see. And then moving on to the feature race. This is where the whole Triton curse comes into
Oh,
play.
it was really
Because
bad.
it was very bad. Obviously, we don't have to mention Noah. He's way out of position anyway. Nothing big
Yeah.
happened on that front this time. But first off, I do believe the first strike of unluckiness to Triton is Charlie Wirtz, who like seems to be having a great time in Monaco. He qualified very well. He was running in the points. Then all of a sudden he has a puncture.
Yeah.
It's great. He radios to the team, being like, "Have a puncture." Team asking, "How is the car?" And he's essentially just saying, "It feels wrong." And then you think, okay, you
That
have a
radio
puncture.
message was so
Yeah,
funny.
it
How
really
does
was.
the car feel? Wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So you think, okay, you literally have a puncture. Like the car feels wrong. It looks wrong too. Let me tell you. And
Yeah.
then they're like, maybe we should try to, like, they're considering staying out. To be fair to Trident, they did tell him to come in after a little while. They were like, okay, we can't do this. We're literally
Yeah.
on the streets of Monaco. It could have been so dangerous if his tire completely blew up or whatever. He's slamming into a wall or something.
Yeah.
But Charlie does not want to let go of that points position. So he's like, no, I can drive with a punctured tire around the streets of Monaco. It's fine. Tries to stay out even after the team said, like, come in. And like things just go horribly wrong for him.
Yeah. He really should have pitted, but unfortunately he landed up in the barriers, which then did bring out
Yeah.
a safety car.
It did. And Trident's curse in Monaco, of course, does not end there. Because, again, Rafa Camara, damage limitation, we're thinking. He's in the points, things are looking good. Tyre decides to leave the chat. It's just like, nope.
It was
Off I
so
go.
out of nowhere as well. He's
Was.
coming round the corner and the tire just flies off. I was like,
Exactly.
did he make a pit stop that I didn't see? Even
Yeah.
though you shouldn't be. Like, what?
Literally. Like, I feel like it was what they had been driving for like over 20 laps or something. And now you decide to come off tire. Like, you just had to hold on for just a couple of more laps. But no, it wants to go out and see some more of Monaco on its own. Doesn't want to be part of the car.
It flies off, bounces off the front of somebody's car, I don't know who, and then goes into the barriers. I'm like, and it like rolling across the circuit.
Yeah, honestly, so impressive that it's held on for that long before just deciding to know I'm done
Could it
now.
not have stayed just a couple more laps? But no.
Exactly, because this weekend was so damaging for Rafa because he could have scored points and he didn't. And that's also like a thing that maybe people that are smarter than us should look into. Like with this new F3 car, this is not the
Yeah.
first time where we see a tire wanting to escape from the car. We did
Yeah.
see in Imola as well a wheel nut just falling off, then obviously the tire coming off with it as well. Like, is this an issue with the wheel nuts that just doesn't want to tighten completely? Because
Yeah.
last week it was random as well. That was like after the driver going into the gravel, but shouldn't take a tire off, guys. Like, there's
No,
something wrong here.
exactly. Yeah, there is something weird about it. And it, you really don't want someone's race to be over because their tire decides to leave. Like,
No.
it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah.
But luckily for Nikola Solov, started on pole and he won the race. He had Roman Belinsky in P2 as a rookie. Very incredible. And then Mari Boya in P3. So it was a double podium for Campos, which is really good for their championship battle. And nice for Nikola in probably his last year of F3. Probably. I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
But to win
he'll probably move on to F2, I would assume, if he can like find a space. Obviously, with Pepe Marti, this being his last year in F2, there is an opening for a Red Bull Junior at Campers. At this point, I'm just thinking Campers equals Red Bull Junior, because that seems to be the way they're going.
It pretty much does.
Yeah, so Nicolas Solov being a Red Bull Junior now, that could be a potential seat he can find himself in next year. But we'll have to wait and see that. But I'm sure he is very happy. He can be able to ride on the CV that he won in the feature race in Monaco.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of it.
Yeah, we have talked for too long. Like, I'm sure there's stuff we haven't covered, but we could be here like all day.
We really could. I have so many thoughts and feelings on everything. But we hope you enjoyed the little bit that we did cover. If you have any opinions about Alex Dunne or anything like that, please leave them in the comments below. Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Do you know why he only got the 10th place grid penalty drop for the sprint in Barcelona? Why is it not carried over? Because, I mean, there's a lot of FIA documents that I could read to probably understand it. Am I going to? Yeah. Probably not. But if you know, let us know, please.
Exactly. So if you don't follow us already, go find us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, /X, whatever you want to call it. We're pretty much everywhere. We are Road to Glory or Road to Glory podcast, something along those lines. You should be able to recognize us across all platforms and to like keep up with all our good content, because we are obviously here on the podcast, a new episode every week, but we also do post additional content to that on our social media platforms. So you don't want to miss out.
No, you don't. We're very funny over there, I will say. All over.
We actually are. So yeah, just saying, you're missing out if you're not following us.
Yes. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Hopefully our next one next week covering Barcelona will be a little bit less chaotic.
Yeah, who even knows at this point? Like, give us just a chill race, maybe.
Yeah.
Just straightforward, deserving winner from... Yeah, nothing crazy.
At least
maybe.
we're not at the street circuit, so... And it's our final time in Barcelona, so...
Yeah.
We'll be saying goodbye to that track for a little bit. But tune in next week. We'll have our episode out as usual. And thank you so much for tuning into this one. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.